Midnight Moon. Written by Suzana Thompson. Narrated by Sarah Sampino. Chapter 29. She approached without hesitation, as eager to partake of life as she had been on the unexpected day of her arrival into this world. Her green eyes were fixed on her future, and she took only a brief moment to smile at her uncharacteristically emotional dad as he handed her off to her groom. Our daughter was not a sentimental person, and she threw herself wholeheartedly into new adventures without dwelling on the past. Yet her past and her future were intertwined on this day, as she wed the son of our dearest friends. She had grown up with this young man and known him her entire life. Damien came to stand beside me in the pew while the ceremony commenced. He saw my misty eyes and squeezed my hand in response. I couldn't help feeling a little sentimental over our little girl growing up and getting married. Thinking back on those happy memories, I realized how many of them also included Thomas Johansson. Cora was constantly defying us from early childhood, and she soon involved Thomas in testing the limits of dumb luck. He went along with any crazy idea she had, from seeking how many of our dishes they could stack into one pile to skiing down dangerous slopes. We explained to her that she wasn't invincible, and that Thomas was even more vulnerable than she was, because he didn't have the healing abilities of a werewolf. She then immediately wanted to turn him into one. Knowing how obstinate she was, we were forced to lie and tell her that humans couldn't survive the change until they were adults. She would kill him if she tried to turn him before then. We were relieved to see that we had gotten through to her, because her eyes went wide at the thought of losing her best friend. She was 10 years old when we told her that, and even though Thomas was a year and a half older than her, 18 still seemed like a long time into the future. Cora was only 8 years old when she changed into the wolf. Fortunately, Charlene watched our kids during full moon nights, or we would have returned to a frantic babysitter in the morning. Our daughter had even informed Charlene that she was going outside to be a wolf. She didn't bother joining us that first time, but instead headed out into the wilderness alone. No doubt she was thrilled to be free from our rules and limitations on how far she could wander. Damien would later remark that he was surprised she hadn't ended up in Russia. Having long since lost touch with Bryce, we had to contact him through Facebook to get his phone number. I remember him telling Taylor that the change didn't occur until he was 13, so we were very concerned about it happening so early for Cora.
"It means that she can kick my ass,"
he told me over the phone.
"That's not hard to do,"
Damien joked. Bryce heard him.
"She'll be able to kick your ass soon, too. Shifting at such a young age means that she has the strength and power of an alpha."
You never mentioned anything about alphas, I said.
"We don't live like that anymore," he replied. "But she would be the leader of her pack, if we still had them. Only another alpha would be able to challenge her."
Damien and I decided that there was no reason to give Cora this information. She was already difficult enough to control without knowing that she was even stronger than other werewolves. We worried less about her now when she wandered away from us during the full moon. She looked like her father, both as a human and as a wolf. Her fur was black, and she grew to be almost as large as he was. Cora turned Thomas into a werewolf during the first full moon after his 18th birthday. She told us about it the next morning.
"How could you do that without discussing it with us first?"
Damien demanded. Do Nick and Charlene know about this? I asked anxiously. He's probably telling them now, Cora replied. Thomas is grown up. He can do what he wants.
"He always does what you want,"
Damien complained angrily.
"Who even knows what he wants?"
He wants to be a software developer, a werewolf, and to marry me. Now he's done one of those, she said.
"What am I gonna say to Nick?"
Damien worried. They came over later that day with Thomas and their other child, Anna.
"Well, it's done,"
Nick said. I'm so sorry, I told them. We all knew this day was coming, Charlene said. Can I be a werewolf too? Anna asked excitedly. You have to be 18, Cora told her.
Only if you marry a werewolf,
Thomas countered. It was the first time any of us had heard him disagree with Cora.
Nick remarked. Maybe turning into a werewolf gave you some balls.
Nick! Charlene admonished him. Damien was laughing, and I think part of it was in relief that our friends seemed to be handling this okay. Our oldest daughter then abandoned us for good during the full moon to go roam with her new wolf companion. Our 14-year-old twin girls were content to follow us through the wilderness. Katrina and Madison were identical, and they resembled me with their brunette hair and brown eyes. The three of us also had brown fur in our wolf forms. "I'm still stronger than Thomas," Cora bragged. "I thought he would be as strong as me after he became a werewolf."
How do you know you're stronger?
Damien questioned. "I can still pin him down when we wrestle," she replied. "Can Mom hold you down too?"
You're too old to be wrestling with a boy,
Damien said.
That's not, something you should be doing.
Cora rolled her eyes, apparently having guessed what he was alluding to. "Not that kind of wrestling. Anyway, he can lift more weight than he could before, but he's still not as strong as I am." "There's a reason for that." I explained what we'd learned about her alpha strength. "So I can make Thomas do what I want," she stated.
Hasn't he always done what you want?
Damien inquired. "Well, yeah," she conceded. All of us again settled into a routine until Cora dropped her next bombshell. The summer she was 17, she informed us that she was marrying Thomas the following June. "I'm just telling you in case you want to plan a wedding or something," she said after we began to protest. "We can just get married at the courthouse otherwise."
What's the rush?
Damien demanded.
Why can't you finish college first?
"We're waiting until we get married to have sex, and I'm not going to wait 5 more years. It's bad enough having to wait another year, but I know you won't sign the papers for me to get married now." He quickly got up to avoid hearing another word about his daughter's sex life, and muttered something about a mother-daughter talk as he left the room. "Chicken," I called after him. I was then left in the uncomfortable position of advising my daughter that she didn't have to get married in order to have sex. "It's not the ideal," I told her, "but it's not realistic for parents to expect young adults to be together for years and not have sex." She fixed me with a look that would surely intimidate any foe. "I don't care what anyone expects. This is what I'm doing. I'm going to marry Thomas next June." So we planned a wedding. Katrina, Madison, and Anna were the bridesmaids, along with one of Thomas's female cousins. The groomsmen were his male cousins. My parents flew out to see their first grandchild get married. Damien's mom and sisters made the trip too. His father had unfortunately died 2 years earlier. Daphne and Jeremy also attended the wedding, using it as a reason to have another vacation in Alaska. They'd had a wonderful time the last time they'd been here, even though it had been winter. Their children were now 8 and 10 years old, so they didn't know yet if either of them was a werewolf. Jeremy had chosen to remain human, but that didn't seem to be a problem for them. I thought about how all our lives had intersected, and I wondered how much was choice and how much was fate. Nick wouldn't be here today watching his son get married if Damien hadn't saved him from that bear. He would have died before he had the chance to marry Charlene, and Thomas wouldn't have been born. There were other lives at stake as well. Damien worked as a park ranger, and he had the authority to shut down certain parts of the park. Sometimes he saved people from fatal accidents, like the time he warned skiers away from a slope where an avalanche occurred a half-hour later. As he had said, we made a great team. My premonitions were infrequent but powerful. I had none on this day, however, and I hoped it meant that there was nothing bad on the horizon for any of us. As we left the church on that warm, sunny day, I felt only the love in my heart for all the family and friends that I was grateful to have in my life. The end. This has been The Other Side of Midnight, written by Suzana Thompson, narrated by Sarah Sampino. Copyright 2015 by Suzana Thompson. Production copyright by Suzana Thompson.